Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com and we are live. And are you guys ready to rumble? Because we've got a great show lined up for you today. Let's see who we've got in the chat today. We've got Andrew, welcome. The Tech Ranger, hi. Brian, always good to see you in here. We've got Larry, we've got Lee, we have got BBF. We have got quite a few guys coming in here. Have I missed anyone? Great to have you guys here. And it has been a while since we have done a live stream, so I will need you to pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. Hey, welcome James, Sean, welcome. Thanks for joining in. You guys need to get your coffee poured. I will be enjoying a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. Since I got up at 4 a.m., it's now 6 a.m. here. I got up at 4 a.m., so I've already polished off a couple of cappuccinos just to kind of get the blood flowing. And that is absolutely great. Okay, let's see. We've got Ian. We've got Mike in the chat. Welcome, you guys, and really great to have everyone tuning in. It's been a while since we've had a live chat or a live stream, and so I really wanted to get back to it. It's been crazy busy, challenging around here the last 6 months, and I've kind of been overwhelmed just with general issues that I'm facing on the compound. Everything is hard in East Africa. I mean, simple things like your tap on your faucet is leaking. You can't find something like an O-ring. You can't find a washer for a garden hose. In fact, you can't find a garden hose. So doing simple things becomes really complicated. And I've been doing some pretty complicated things, putting the compound over onto solar. We're off the grid now, so we're on solar. And then also installing an irrigation system for the compound. And things like that have really been a little bit overwhelming, but those things are more or less under control now. And if you guys are interested, I would love to start trying to do regular live streams again. I've really been missing them. Let's see. We have got Harish in the house, learning on the Arduino. That's great. CT, great to have you here. And let's see. No, Ian, I sold everything in the United States, and so I am in Africa for my remaining years, and we actually love it here. It's kind of like living in the Old West. Everything is challenging, but it makes life very interesting. And so we love it here. We will not be moving back to the United States. Okay, we've got Ken in the house. Okay, OpenEye, hello. Argha, sorry if I didn't say that right. Great to have all you guys in the house. What I'm hoping to do today is talk to you a little bit about some upcoming things on the channel, and also talk to you a little bit about upcoming projects that we're doing on the Raspberry Pi Pico W. I also hope to just have a little question and answer session where we have a way to interact a little bit. Looks like we have David in. It's been a while, David. Great to have you here. Louisville, Texas. Where is that? Where is that? I have heard of it, but I am not sure exactly where it is. Warren's Corner from Lockport, New York. Welcome. Okay, great to have you. Sam, it's great to have you there. And so it's just really good to see you guys coming in, and hope you guys enjoy this. What we'll do is talk a little bit about things that I have on the agenda, and then want to have a time just to answer questions and sort of chat with you guys. I have really missed the live stream. Back in the background, we have the headwaters of the mighty River Nile. And as we chat this morning and enjoy our coffee, we will be enjoying a sunrise over the River Nile. How cool is that? Yes, Louisville is near Dallas. Okay, I should have known that. Welcome, Riza. I'm not sure how to say it. And you guys, I hope that I've greeted everyone. The chats are coming by pretty quick. Sam, welcome. If I've missed anyone, I apologize. I'm trying to give everyone a shout out who checks in, and so that is really good. Okay, are you guys interested in getting a little sneak peek at where we're going with the Raspberry Pi Pico lessons. Okay, you guys want to sort of see what we've got coming down the pike. Hey, DRD327, welcome. It's been a while since we have seen you. It's always great to have you in the house. Hopefully we'll have our other dentist, Dr. Denton, come in, and we will have dueling dentist. I hope that happens. Chris from Chicago, welcome. Okay, we're getting a pretty nice crowd coming in. Well, let me get out of your way. And let me show you one of the things that we will have coming up in very near lessons. And I've done this work over the last few days, and I really had a lot of fun with it. Hi, Navneeth, welcome from Bangalore. Wow, we're worldwide tonight. And Hesse Steady Pacer. He is a steady pacer. Thank you for putting these on. Well, great. I really have fun with it. Stephen, welcome. All right. Wow, we've got a nice crowd developing here. James, welcome. And let's see. Let's get over here and let's look at what we have coming up in the next few lessons. And so let me switch over here. This is the project that I am working on the Raspberry Pi Pico. What do you guys think this does? Does anyone have any idea? Anyone want to hazard a guess what this project is going to do? Let's hear it. Hi, Bionicle from South Australia. I've been to the land down under 4 times. Once I stayed 4 months. It's a great place. I'll never forget those Vegemite sandwiches, okay? Let's see. So Arga has guessed an IMU. Okay, you're on the right track, but maybe somebody gets a little more specific what we're going to be doing with this IMU. Had a lot of fun with it. I have to admit that. Qzorn, welcome. He likes the Pi Pico W projects. Yeah, man, I am really a digital level. Ian? You got it. We made a digital level. Andrew, I would love to get back to quaternions at some point. And before this IMU is over, we might have to dust off our old quaternions to get this thing to do exactly what we want. Yes, Stephen, it is a digital level. And I just really had a lot of fun with this project. And let's see if I can kind of plug this thing in and have it come to life. Now, I'm showing you one of the things that I really love. One of the things I really love about the Pico W is our ability to run mobile. You know, it's very natural to use this thing without having cords and cables connected. So I want you to see that this thing doesn't have anything connected to it. We will need power. And so I am going to bring on the battery and see if I can get this thing to come to life. Let's see. Ian says that he worked on a similar project not too long ago. Okay. Well, maybe you'll find this interesting. I hope so. Okay. Tech Raider says he enjoys the lessons. That's great. Tech Rancher, 3-axle. An axle is on a car. An axis is on an IMU. So it was probably just a typo, but it is not a 3-axis. It is a 6-axis. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. So are you ready for me to plug this thing in? You got to tell me, are you ready for me to plug this thing in and see what it does? Or should we just sit around and watch silly cat videos? Or do you want to see this thing come to life? Come on, tell me. Sean is ready. BBF is ready. Okay, so we're going to come in. Do you love how neat and simple and compact this build is? So we're bringing our power in. As BBF has pointed out, you got to really make sure you plug it in the right way. Okay, so that is plugged in. It's alive. It's alive. Look at that. Okay, so now do you have a little more idea of what this thing does? And so kind of tell me what you think is, hey, Quaternion, we have not heard from you in a long time. How have you been, Quaternion? Really, you were one of the guys always on the channel, and we haven't heard from you in a while, so welcome back. Okay, so somebody tell me how this thing is going to operate. Like, what do you think this is going to do, just looking at what you can see now on the screen? Any guesses? Any guesses about how this thing is going to work? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. It is looking at the tilt of the board. Yes, it is. Wow, precise looking crosshairs. Love the name too. Translate motion on a plane. Not quite yet. We're not translating yet, Ian. What we're doing is they said that we are looking at tilt. But tilt like a normal level in one axis? No, we are looking at two-dimensional tilt. And so if I come over here and I raise this, the bubble moves like the bubble on a level. Okay, the bubble moves like a bubble on a level. And you see it acts like an air bubble, right? The side that's going up, that is the side that the little bubble moves to. What I also like that you don't get in a normal level, we actually get the two values of pitch and roll, like what angle are you at? And so if I come up this way, I get like 10 degrees that I've pitched it. And so pitch is in this direction. This is negative pitch because this is the front of the accelerometer. And so this is negative pitch, or we could come this way and we could get positive pitch. What do you think about that? Okay, motion, XY axis. Wow, that's cool. Thanks, Sean. I had a lot of fun with it. What components measure tilt? This is the, what is this? I can't remember the component, but it is a component in those Sunfounder kits. I'm sorry, I just don't have the component name on the top of my head. For those people who want the board perfectly level, you can use this. Okay, now watch this. You see, a normal level would do something like this, but we can come in and we can also tilt in the other direction. And so you can get your board or your item or whatever flat in both directions. And this is what I kind of think is neat, that as you're really trying to zoom in on it, when I hit the perfect level, like level in both axes within 1 degree, the screen inverts. And so you can see that you have achieved perfect level. Now, when you look at this, it looks like a lot of noise on the screen, but that's just an aliasing issue. That is an aliasing issue with the camera. When you look at it with your eye, you don't see that blink or that jiggle. And so we come this way, we come this way, we come this way, and we come this way. And what you can see is the whole thing is portable. And so if we put this on a smaller board and we 3D printed a case with it, it would be mobile and you could use it in an actual application. And the neat thing is that with this little power module that we have, it's rechargeable. So just periodically you would come in and you would plug in a USB and it would charge it up. One of the things I really love about these little OLED displays is they are very low power. Okay, let's look and see if we've got some comments. Yes, MPU 6050. Thank you, James. That was what I knew it was the 6050, but I couldn't remember the MPU part. What if you go too far? Will the bubble fall off the screen? No, it just saturates over. Yeah, I guess it does go off the screen. You're right. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, it just translates off the screen. But what I really love is we can get actual quantitative data here, and we can get the actual values. And so I think that is pretty neat. The other thing that I think is pretty neat about this is that since we have the wireless capability on the Pico W, you could actually run this completely remotely. Like from your PC, you could monitor something that you were trying to look at and see what angle it is sitting at. So you could even deploy this on something of interest, and then you could remotely get the data. Okay, let's look at the comments here for a second. Lewis says this is a very cool project. I think so. Sunil, welcome to the chat. Andrew, maybe the screen could turn red when the bubble falls off the screen to tell you that you have turned too much. The problem is this is only blue and black or yellow. You see, it's not RGB. The top two lines are yellow, and below it the pixels are blue. So I would love to have a little RGB version of this, but they're really not available, or the few that are out there, they don't have libraries for MicroPython. But having an RGB version of this is really where we're going. Okay, what if you turn it completely upside down, the screen facing the ground? Okay, let's see. If I do that, I'll have to look at this. You know, it also works upside down, but upside down, the bubble goes in the opposite direction. The bubble doesn't go to the high side, the bubble goes to the low side, but it does work upside down. I will give you a little heads up. Right now, with the simple math I'm using, if you come all the way to 90 degrees, it doesn't really work as you would expect, because there's something called gimbal lock. and it's a characteristic of IMU systems, and the math breaks down at 90 degrees at those orthogonal angles. The math breaks down. Now, as we get more advanced, we can actually take care of something like that. Okay, Dr. Dave, getting quantitative is valuable. Yeah, I really like that. And it's really very accurate. It is really very accurate to better than a degree, I do believe. You do not have to really calibrate these things because for these IMUs like this, they really mount them very carefully, and so calibration is really not needed. Okay, good. Let's see. Did you use? Yes, Andrew, and that's going to be one of the topics that I'm going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk a little bit about math and the importance of math and being able to do a project like this. Okay, Bluetooth to a smartphone for remote readings. Yes, that is very doable, and the Pico W does have Bluetooth, but I will tell you the situation. Anytime I have ever used Bluetooth, it has broken my heart, and it just, to me, Bluetooth doesn't work very well. And in fact, when I even have something like I've got a little bit of a movie projector for watching videos, and I have it tied to a really nice speaker that connects by Bluetooth. And every time I watch a movie, it takes me 10 or 15 minutes to get the sound working. And it's just because I don't watch movies very much, or I don't do videos very much. And so when I do it, it takes me forever to get the Bluetooth working. And because of my bad experience, I just don't look very much to working with Bluetooth, but maybe some of you guys have had better luck than that. Andrew, this did not take that many lines of code. I would guess something like maybe 20 lines of code is what I would guess. Where is it really used? Well, it would be used in all types of different things. In general, something like the MPU 6050 is in it's in basically a technology like this is in every single car. And what it does is it detects a car crash and then fires the airbag. And that's something I actually worked on in my career, was developing algorithms and manufacturing techniques so that you absolutely positively got it right. Like, you don't want to hit a bump and have the airbag go off. And secondly, you don't want to have a car crash and have the airbag not go off. And so developing algorithms for perfectly firing the airbag is something that I worked on in my career. And if you look at it, it is extremely reliable. You never hear of someone having their airbag accidentally go off, or you never hear of someone having a car crash and the airbag not going off. So it's a very mature technology. People put these things on four-wheel drive vehicles so that you can look at your inclination and your tilt as you are traversing challenging obstacles. This could also be used as like a security device. Like if you put it on a door handle and somebody turned the door handle, you could detect that tilt. And so also you could use it to like control shutters. Like if you had a greenhouse and you wanted to control the position of the shutters to open or close the airflow, you could do it with something like this. So there's really all types of things in construction when you want to get things perfectly level. So there's really a pretty wide range of applications. Andrew says, what about using LoRa? Yeah, Warren, I bought all the components for Lauren, and I really want LoRa. I really want to get into that. I just haven't had the chance to dive into that. It's a pretty big field, but that is on my radar screen, is this kind of long range, low bit rate Wi-Fi type connections. Let's see, Andrew says in the BNO 55 class, we used a serial plotter to see the data. Okay, for this, what we would use is we would just use Thonny, okay, because Thonny has a simple plotter. And that would probably be the thing that I will show it with in the classes, is to just use Thonny. Yeah, Sean, I don't know exactly how many lines of code, but it really was not that many. I wrote this program in about 30 minutes. Okay, let's see. It could be a tilt alarm on a bike. Yes, it could be. All right, Stephen, thanks for the comment. Yeah, LoRa, I think, is going to be a direction we will be going. Yes, leveling an RV, because you want your RV level. So things, if you have like a gas refrigerator in the RV, a lot of different reasons you want your RV perfectly flat. And so this would be kind of an ideal type of thing for that. Okay. Now, let's talk about some important things. In order to do a project like this, you're going to have to be able to do a little bit of math. Okay, you're going to have to be able to do a little bit of math. And this is one of the most common comments that I get on this channel. And that comment is, I am really not good at math. Okay, as soon as a math problem comes up on the channel, a lot of you guys will either just completely punt, like I'm not going to do that project because it takes math, or you'll try to find a brute force solution that doesn't require math, but instead of being 2 lines of code, you've got 85 lines of code. But a lot of you guys just punt when it comes to math. You freeze up. You try to go copy and paste someone else's code, or you try to find a library that does the function that we're doing in math. And so a lot of times I do a lot of linear equations, and then people will come in and say, oh, well, you can just use the map function and not have to do the math. But the whole point is to understand the math, because what are you going to do when you come to a problem that the map function doesn't work on? You got to understand the math, and I teach you the math, okay? But you guys have got to stop freezing up. It's like your brain shuts down, some of you, not all of you, but I'm just saying this is a common thing that I get. It's like you curl up in the corner in the fetal position when you see a math problem. And again, you know, what I hear over and over is someone saying, I am not good in math. Okay. BBF says, I don't like math. It's confusing. Someone else will use the forbidden map function. Yes, that is the forbidden function, because we need to know how to do lines. Okay. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is stop saying that math is confusing, and stop doing these things, and stop saying I am not good in math. Instead of saying I am not good in math, maybe you should say I did not have very good math teachers in school, or the public school math system failed me. But stop saying that you are not good in math, because you're declaring defeat before you even start. So the first thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is say, I can do the math if someone will just explain it to me in a clear way. Okay? If someone will just explain it to me in a clear way, I will be able to do it. Let's see, Brian says linear equations are not so bad. You're exactly right. It's just, okay, trig. That is the topic of today, Brian, is trig. And I hope that I can change your mind today on the topic of trig. This is not going to be a trig lesson, but I want to change your mind about trig being confusing. The problem is no one has ever really shown you what it is and how to do it very, very simply. Okay, longhand math. Yes, I love math. Math is a way to model the real world. Yes, and math is your friend, and it makes things a lot easier. Let's see. Okay, Q-Zorn loves the math. Math looks interesting. I had a terrible math teacher. Yes, he would tell you what you got wrong, but not explain why. Exactly, and I'm going to get in that a little bit more. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, BBF. Okay, all you guys that struggle or feel like you're a failure in math, why is it? Well, the first thing is the way that math is taught in the public school system is it's very cumulative from first grade all the way to college, and the system does not address gaps in learning. Let's say you had a bad day or a bad week in third grade when they were doing fractions, and it didn't make sense. You were sick that week, you never understood it, and you get a gap in your knowledge. And for the next 14 years, your life is miserable because you really didn't understand fractions. And as time goes on in math, you end up with more and more gaps in your understanding. And this calculus problem requires you to really understand Algebra 2, which requires you to really understand Algebra 1, which requires you to really understand fractions. Okay, and anything that you missed in that chain, you get to calculus and you can't do it. Not because you don't know calculus, but you have a gap in that earlier understanding. And the present math system fails miserably at addressing these gaps in learning. The second thing is the entire system is based on a fixed path. You're going to start with the number line in first grade of 1 + 1 = 2, And by the time you get done with college, you have calculus and you have differential equations. But that learning cycle from first grade to senior college year is at a fixed pace, okay? And that pace is much too fast for some students, and it's much too slow for other students, and it's exactly right for almost no one. It's exactly right for almost no one. And so there's kind of a concept that they use in the Khan Academy, a free online math course. They start with the number line 1 + 1 = 2, and there's hundreds of lessons, and they take you all the way through calculus and differential equations. But the concept behind the Khan Academy is you do not advance until you master the existing topic, the existing class. You can't move forward until you have mastered the existing topic. And as a high school teacher, I actually use Khan Academy as part of my curriculum. I sort of played around with it. And the way it works is you would learn a little snippet of math, and then before you could advance, you would have to work 10 homework problems in a row correctly. If you worked 9 and missed the 10th one, you would have to go back to the first one. Now, what's great about that system? It shows the importance that you have to master the math. And I can't tell you how many times in class we would be sitting there working and you would hear a student go, "Ah!" because he had gotten 9 in a row right and missed the 10th one. Well, he wants to move on. And so what does he do? He wants to start, "Hey, Peter. Thanks. I really appreciate that. That is a great encouragement. Really appreciate the super chat there, Peter." Okay, so you have to master it before you move on. And the problem with the existing system is if you get 9 out of 10 problems correct and you miss 1 out of 10, you get an A. You're the hero. You're on the honor roll. But in the real world, if you're right 9 times out of 10 in math, airplanes crash, buildings fall down, bridges collapse, okay? Math, you have to really understand, you have to get it right, and you have to work it perfectly. And that is embedded in the Khan Academy type of system. The other thing, the reason people are afraid of that, the education system is afraid of that, is that if we start in first grade and let people progress on their own pace, they'll never get through everything that they need to get through. So we got to force them through when they really don't understand. We have to force them through when they really don't understand. And that is a problem. Okay, but let me tell you what my experience was when I used Khan Academy in the classroom. Okay, what I experienced when I used Khan Academy in the classroom, there were some students that, let's say Algebra 2 is what, an 8-month program, 2 4.5-month semesters. And there would be kids that would go through that entire 9-month curriculum in 1 month. They were flying. They loved math because they weren't being held back by those students who did not comprehend or grasp it quite as quickly. And so you let the flyers fly with that system. Okay, but you say, well, the slower kids, they're never going to get through the math. Well, what I would see over and over, there would be a student that would go through module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get stuck on 5. And let's say you need to do 1 module a day, and they get stuck for 3 weeks, 21 days on 1 module. But finally, when they got it and they understood it. And after they got past that, they would fly and they would catch up with the other students. And so instead of force feeding a linear progression of learning, what you do is let people progress at their own pace and have faith when they really understand something, then the other stuff will come very quickly. Why? Because when you master this, then all these new lessons that are based on that, you fly through because you really understand it. Does that make sense, you guys? Let me know. Does what I say makes sense, or let me know. Okay, my children are also sins. Okay, that's good. trying to look at the comments here. You guys just give me feedback if it's making sense what I'm saying. Okay, Tech Rancher says it's making sense. All right. So what is the problem for you guys that are confused by math or afraid of math? You were forced through a system that basically was designed to fail. Math is very logical, and I can explain to you how it works. Okay. Now, one of the problems is just the way I said that they force feed you into a linear learning where you learn step by step and you move forward, whether you understand it or not. That's the first thing. And the second problem is in the public school system, math teachers are really not very good. There's some notable exceptions, exemplary exceptions out there, but for the most part, most math teachers do not really understand the math. What do? They get out the book and they copy on the board the example problems, and then they give you homework, and then they grade the homework and either mark it wrong or give a check mark. But they don't show you when you miss one, this is what you're messing up. Guy, you're not getting your parentheses. The reason you're not doing well, you've got to master these parentheses. That feedback most students don't get. They just work real hard and they turn their homework in and they get it back and it's a 60, but they have no idea what it is that they don't understand. So most math teachers are not very good. The second thing is most math teachers don't really love math. It's just kind of what they did, and it's not something they know. It's not something they love. And maybe most importantly, they don't know why it's important. All they're thinking about is, I got to get through this many lessons. I got to get my homeworks graded. I got to prepare the tests. But they're not instilling an understanding of the importance of math, the relevance of math, or that math is your friend. Okay, in England, there is one teacher per 30 students. Yeah, and teachers a lot of times have a lot of responsibilities outside of teaching math, like, oh, you've got to go work in the concession stand. Oh, you've got to go decorate for the prom. When I was a teacher in high school, I just thought, no, not going to do it. I'm working on my math lessons prep. I'm not going to go work in the concession stand. And the funny thing about the public school system, teachers are really scared and they're always living in fear, but it's really hard to fire a teacher. And I kind of had a goal. My goal in life was to be the first teacher ever fired for not working in the concession stand. So in my however many years of teaching, I never once worked in the concession stand. I never once decorated for the prom. And when they would come in and tell me I had to do it, I'd just say, fire me. I'm not going to do it. Fire me. And you know what? They never fired me. And the parents actually loved me because their students were excelling in math. Actually, in the years that I taught math, the worst that a student ever did on the ACT was in the top 5% of the country. That was my worst math student. My best math students were in the 99 percentile, top 1% of the country in math. Why? I understood the math. Number 2, I loved the math. Number 3, I knew it was important. Number 4, I knew that if you explained it right, anyone could understand it. Okay, and the other problem, and I hate to pick on coaches, but at least in Texas, and I think a lot of part of the country, the whole school system is centered around football, okay? And so we need a line coach for our football team. And so we find this guy that's a great line coach. He's certified in math. So we hire him as the line coach, and then we put him in there to be the math teacher. And he doesn't have a clue what's going on with math, okay? And so when you have a school system that is based on sports and football and not academics, you end up with some really incompetent math teachers. Now, I had a math teacher in high school. Wow, Sean, thanks. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Okay, thanks you guys for the super chat. Also, thank you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It's becoming more and more important because, like I say, YouTube is not showing me any love. And what's keeping me in the game right now is you guys who are really helping me out over at Patreon. So you guys, I really appreciate that. Okay, so my math teacher in high school was a coach, but he really was good at math, and I learned math from him. So there are some exceptions, but I think if you just look across the board, of math teachers are trying to teach you how to use a calculator to get past the STAR test, and you don't have a clue what is going on with the math. You just know to solve this type of problem, you hit star 7 reverse 4 3, and then it works the problem for you. And it's to get you past the competency test, the standardized test, but it's not to really teach you the math. Okay, so that is the problem. So math should be taught in a different way. It should be taught self-paced. It should require mastery before advancing, and it should be tied to relevant real-world problems. Okay, so like on this channel, I give you a problem where you're trying to do a certain thing, and if you don't do the math, it turns into this huge, bloated, complicated 150 lines of code because you're trying to brute force a solution instead of just doing the math that would take 2 minutes. Wow! The Wise Ninja. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Welcome back, Wise Ninja. Been missing you. It's good to have you back back in the game here. Okay, so what I do is I give you a real world problem, like you want to do something, and in order to do it, if you'll take 2 minutes to do the math, and how many times have I shown you linear equations? The slope of a line is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and then the equation of the line is y minus y1 is equal to m, the slope, onto x minus x1. How many times have I done that? And that will solve a million different problems. And like, let me give you one here. This is what actually the next lessons on the class are going to be. And this is I think this one I'll just leave plugged in for power. Okay, this is a simple servo project. Okay, this is a simple servo project. When the potentiometer is pointed to the left, the servo is pointed to the left. When the potentiometer moves and comes to straight up, then the servo is pointed straight up. And when the potentiometer goes all the way to the right, then the servo is all the way to the right. Look how smooth and perfect this works. Why? I did a simple 2-minute math problem. What is the x value? The value that you get is the reading from the potentiometer. What is the y value? That's what you want to have, the angle of the servo. And by doing a simple linear equation, then this becomes an elegant and simple and very few lines of code to make this work. But what a lot of you guys do is you'll go in and do like 180 different if statements, like if the potentiometer reads this, then put the servo here. If the potentiometer reads this, then put the servo here. And you just end up with this nightmare. And so let's see if we can learn a little bit more math. I've done a whole lot on linear equations, and if you guys have not learned that, just understand you learn it if you just follow along with me. But now let's talk about this. Let's talk about this tilt project here. Now to do this, you cannot do this just with linear equations. What do you need for this? You need to understand trigonometry. And trigonometry, like math, is the most hated subject in school. And of those hated classes, the most hated class is trigonometry, okay? And no one understands trigonometry. Everyone hates it. Well, why do people hate it? Well, they teach it and they make it way, way, way too complicated, to where in reality, trigonometry is very, very simple. The second thing is they have no connection to the real world. It's just a bunch of abstract concepts and a bunch of abstract identities, and you're just trying to memorize and mimic putting steps in that you have no clue what they mean, and you have no clue of how that's important. And like, let me give you an example. When you go through trig class, they teach you about sine and 50 identities about sine, cosine, 50 identities is tangent, secant, cotangent, hyperbolic sine, hyperbolic cosine, hyperbolic tangent, arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent, arc secant, arc cosine, arc cotangent, arc hyperbolic sine, arc hyperbolic cosine, arc hyperbolic tangent, and like all these identities around all those things, and it just becomes a frustrated exercise in memorization. Now, what I will tell you is you can work any trig function. You can work any trig function out there. You can work any trigonometry problem. I just lost my sketch pad here. Let's see if we can get this back to life. There it is. Okay. You can work just about any trigonometry problem knowing two things, sine and cosine. And if you understand it, sine and cosine is really, really simple. And what I would always tell my students is whatever the problem they give you, just switch it over, rewrite it with sines and cosines, and then solve it with sines and cosines. We'll know the identities associated with sines and cosines, we'll understand them, and we'll know why they're important. But forget all that other stuff because you can work almost any problem with sines and cosines. Yeah, SOHCAHTOA. Yep, Andrew, that is a big one, SOHCAHTOA. So guys, can I just take a second and see if I can, in 5 minutes, make you understand what trigonometry is about? Is that worth it? That if you'll just listen to me for 5 minutes, I'll kind of explain what trigonometry is? Is there interest in that? Let me know, is there interest in that? We could use this as a combination lot. Yep, that is true. Heck yeah, I agree. Yes. Okay, so sounds like there's a little interest here. So let's switch over here. The first problem with trigonometry is they just start drawing a lot of abstract triangles and then start giving you a bunch of identities. But really, in my mind, as it's at the heart of it, trigonometry is not about triangles. It's about circles. Okay, so let's come over here. Let's see if I can fire this thing up. And I'm going to start here. That is not good. I need to draw a line. Let me get a circle. Let me see if I can get a better color. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can do this thing. I am going to draw a circle. Now, in the Raspberry Pi Pico lessons recently, when did we have to do a project with a circle or creating a circle? Do you guys remember when we had to make a circle in the Raspberry Pi Pico W lessons? Let me know. See if you guys remember when we really sort of had to understand a circle. And what I saw is you guys really, a lot of you were really struggling with making the circle. And you were going in trying to find a library, you were going in trying to find an equation, but really most people didn't really understand the simple solution to it. Yeah, Sean, when we drew a circle on the display, that is true. Okay, so now I have a circle, right? And so the first thing that I want to do is just kind of draw this on a coordinate axis. So that's the x-axis, and that is the y-axis, right? X and y. That makes perfect sense, right? We understand a graph, we have x and y. Now, this is the thing that we have. Let me draw one more line here. This is the thing that you think of a circle. A circle is just a radius like that, okay, a radius like that, and that radius is at some angle with the x-axis, right? And we understand angles, right? This is like 0 degrees to 90 to 180 to 270 to 360, right? We understand a circle in degrees. And so people have intuition for like a 45-degree angle or something like that, right? So we understand angles. So I have a radius, and let's say the radius is unit 1, a length of 1. And whatever units you want, the length is 1. If we spin that radius around through 360 degrees, we draw a what? We draw a circle. And we can kind of see that, but if you're going to work with that circle, for every point as that radius moves around, you need to know its what? Its x value and its y value. Okay, what is the x and y value? Well, you can, let me draw one more line here. You come down and you can kind of come down like this, okay? And now what I do is, that's not right, okay. What I do is to get to that point on the circle, I come over x and I go up by y, and then where do I end up with? I end up on that point, okay? I end up on that point. That is, I don't know how I got that. Let me Let me see if I can erase that. I inadvertently hit something that I shouldn't on there. Okay. So you see you come over by x and then you go up by y. And then where do you end up? At the point xy. Now as you change the angle, what changes? X and y. And so if you want to draw a circle, you just move the angle from 0 to 360 and you figure out the x and y. Well, when, as I said, this is a unit 1, the length of this for this example is 1. Well, what is the y value? The y value is simply the sine of theta. The sine of the angle is the y value. What is the x value? It is the cosine of the angle. And so if I take the angle from 0 to 360, I will get the x and the y values for the whole circle. How easy is that? Right? Sine is the y value, x is the cosine value. And so sine and cosine is just x and y. Okay, it's just x and y. Does this make sense? Tell me if this is is this confusing? Did I lose everyone there? So give me some feedback about what I just talked about. Does that make sense? Okay, Tech Rancher says it makes sense. Was it hard? Okay, Team Dep says it makes sense. Okay, does it make sense? People are saying yes, it makes sense. Was it hard? No. How do you get the sine and cosine? You can get them on your calculator, or in your program, you can do something like math.sine or math.cosine. Okay, it's really pretty easy. So at least as we're going into that project on the tilt, can we approach it with the attitude of, this guy can teach me trigonometry. This guy can teach me trigonometry. I don't have to be afraid of it. He's not going to do hyperbolic cotangents, right? He's going to teach it to me, and I can learn it because it's all about a circle. Well, how do you end up with a triangle? Well, let me just say one thing. The other thing that I think is that can be confusing to people, we think in degrees, and so this would be 0, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then when you get to 0 and 360 degrees are the same point. Okay, so then you can just sit and spin around and around and around, and it just repeats itself. But when you are working with trigonometry, a lot of the programming languages do not use degrees, they use radians. Well, there's 360 degrees in a circle. There are 2 pi radians in a circle. So this in radians would be what? 0 radians. And then what over here at 180, if the whole circle is 2 pi, at 180, that's what? That is half of that, pi. Well, 90 would be half of that again, which would be pi over 2. Pi over 2. And then 270 is 3 pi over 2. And so people use radians because when you get into more complicated problems, the radians work just a little bit more naturally, but there's nothing to be afraid of. 0 degrees is 0 radians, 90 degrees is pi over 2, pi is 180, 3 pi over 2 is 270, and then 2 pi comes back all the way to 0. Okay, so don't be afraid of radians. It's just a different unit of measure. And when we are doing problems, I like to think of them in degrees, and then I like to change the degrees to radians when I plug it into the math. The math problem. Okay, now how did we end up with triangles in trigonometry? Okay, but you see, you start with a circle, you understand sine and cosine. I guess the other thing that I would say is, what if instead of 1, what if the length of this radius that you're spinning was 4? Okay, well in that case, y would be equal to 4 times sine of theta, and x would be equal to 4 times cosine of theta. So everything just scales by the radius, but a lot of problems you just solve using a radius of 1. Okay, but if it's not a radius of 1, then you just multiply the sine and the cosine by what the radius is. And so that is pretty simple. So for the drawing the circle, what did you need to do? You just needed to say, well, the x value of the point where I want to put the pixel is the x value is just the radius times the cosine of the angle, and the y value is the radius times the sine of the angle, and then I'm going to do that for all the pixels between 0 and 360 degrees. Okay, BBF is afraid of pi. It can't be definitely concluded yet we are using it conclusively. Yeah, it's pretty accurate though if you go out to enough points though. The project results will confirm the math like a calculator. That is true. How do you find the reference angle? Well, you know what I do, I just think of this, I start at the x-axis and then the positive rotation direction is counterclockwise, and then I just think in terms of coming here and just spinning around. That's what you need to understand. Now, they make up a lot of stuff and a lot of definitions that you really don't need. It's just think of it as a vector that you're spinning around the origin, and that will get you through almost any trigonometry problem. What if you don't take 360 but 300? What's the calculation then? It's exactly the same. It's just instead of going from 0 to 360 in your for loop, you would go from 0 to 300 and you would draw an arc, a partial circle. So what if I wanted to draw a semicircle? I would go from 0 to 180. What if I wanted to draw a quarter circle? I would go from 0 to 90. You see, it's very, very intuitive. Why 3 pi over 2? Well, think about it. You're counting by pi over 2's. And so up here, this is 1 pi over 2. This is 2 pi over 2. This is 3 pi over 2. And this is 4 pi over 2. Okay? 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2 is pi. 3 pi over 2, and then 4 pi over 2 is 2 pi. So just like you count by adding 90s, 90, 180, 270, 360, we're counting by pi over 2's. 0 pi over 2, 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2. You see, it's very easy. Okay, how do inverse trigonometric problems work? Well, let's say that your x value was 0.707 and your y value was 0.707. Like if you were given this point and you were asked for the angle, instead of doing the sine, you don't know what the angle is, but what the angle is, it is equal to the arc sine of what? 0.7, the y value, the y value, okay? And if you type arc sine of 0.707 actually, if you type in arc sine of 0.707 in your math function on the Raspberry Pi Pico W or on your calculator, it will return the angle. And for 0.707, that angle is actually 45 degrees. So arc sine is just instead of taking the angle and getting the points, what you do is you take the points and you get the angle. But it's still sine and cosine. It's just doing it in this direction or doing it in that direction. Okay, how do you convert degrees to radians? Okay, so if I want radians, okay, I take the degrees that I have, and I find what fraction of the circle. I'm going to have to get out of your way a little bit more. What fraction of the circle I have? Well, the fraction of the circle is degrees divided by 360. That's what fraction of the circle I've gone. So if I go 90, I've gone 90 divided by 360. I've gone 1/4 of the way around the circle. So that is the fraction of the circle you have. And then you multiply it by the full circle in radians, which is 2 pi. So to do the conversion, it is 2 pi times the degrees divided by 360. And that converts radians, converts degrees to radians. If you want to go the other way and you want degrees when you have radians, well, what fraction of the circle do you have? Okay, what fraction of the circle do you have? Well, whatever radians you measured divided by 2 pi, that is the fraction times your new units. The whole circle would be 360. So radians divided by 2 pi times 360 will take you from radians to degrees. If you have degrees, you multiply by 2 pi divided by 360 and you get radians. You see, it's really, really very simple, and it's something that you can do without really any difficulty at all. So why inverse functions? You have the points. Are you able to find the angle? Well, to find the angle, you have to do the the inverse. So if I want to go from angle to point, I use sine. If I want to go from point to angle, I use inverse sine. It's just you can do or you can undo. It's kind of the same thing. Okay, guys, I have talked way too much in this class, but let me know. Is this making sense, what I'm saying? Does this, I mean, from this little bit of time I spent on this, are you developing an understanding that trig is not that hard and it's something that you would be able to do? Was there anyone that looked at what I did and was confused here? Okay, please do more math classes. Yes, I intend to. Isn't it like inverse operation? Well, it's undoing. The sine does something and the inverse sine undoes it, okay? You have made it make sense to me. Good deal, Sean. Thanks, team. It makes sense. BBF! He doesn't hate trig anymore. Okay, very clear. I'd like to see more of this. I love the math. Your math classes are great, very insightful. Yes, okay. So you see, if they had taught you this to begin with and told you to go graph a circle, and then you have to see to graph the circle, you got to do sine and cosine, it would make perfect sense. And then we just move forward from there. And I will admit, you can work any problem with sine and cosine. Tangent's kind of useful. And what is tangent? Tangent is the sine of the angle divided by the cosine of the angle. So tangent's useful, but it's not complicated because it's just sine over cosine. Okay, it's really pretty straightforward and pretty clear. Okay, so if we are going to do this project, you're going to have to understand trig. And so with your permission, I would like to do 2 classes on trigonometry, but it's going to be as simple and straightforward as what I just showed there. And you can see here, at its heart, trigonometry is simply a circle. But as you trace that circular point around, as you trace this point around the circle, what you end up with kind of is created inside of this is a triangle. And then you can start thinking about those triangles, and then you can relate the sides of the different the 3 sides of the triangle. You can relate each one of those to that angle. But really what you have to do is you have to think of it in terms of this, and then you end up with triangles, and then with angles you can calculate sides, and with sides you can calculate angles. And so what I would like to do is teach you 2 classes on trigonometry, and then you will have the skills that you need to be successful in doing the homeworks here. Are you guys willing to try to learn? Are you willing to not lock up and have the confidence that this is something that you will be able to do? Because I don't want to teach this if you guys are just going to lock up when I start talking about math. So you give me, Andrew says yes, James says great idea, love it, Tech Ranger, yep, let's do it. Lewis, I want to learn. I would love to go through some trig. Okay, so what is coming up in the class? The next couple of lessons in the class are going to be to do this servo project, so we can control servos. We can control servos from the Raspberry Pi Pico W. After those 2 classes, I'll do 2 classes on trigonometry, and then we'll jump into doing this project. And this project will build up kind of in a few stages. You're not going to do the whole thing in one lesson, but I'll take you step by step. I'll give you homework assignments, and you'll have the math tools necessary to do it. Okay, he's Steady Pacer says it sounds chewable. Is there a package deal with calculus and chemistry? Man, I really want to teach calculus. I just need a project that would motivate us to do calculus, because if you understand the algebra, then calculus is fun and easy. And I'm really struggling and want to learn a project that would require calculus and would make you learn calculus. So one day I will do that. Okay, we've got a couple minutes left. Let's see if we have a little time for questions and answers. Anything about trigonometry, anything about Raspberry Pi Pico Ws, anything about this channel. Let me give you a chance to just ask a few questions. So you guys just jump in and ask questions, and we'll interact here a little bit. I'll have a little sip of coffee. I think what I'm going to do is maybe polish off this cappuccino I made. I'm not getting any questions. Come on, guys. Give me some questions. I have another. So will this trig class be in the Pico class? Yes. In the Pico class, there'll be 2 trig lessons, just 2. In 2 lessons, I can teach you everything you need to know to solve practical problems with trigonometry. What is gimbal lock? Okay. What is, gimbal lock is when the cosine is 0. The cosine of the angle is 0. And then if you do a tangent, it's sine divided by cosine, and you're dividing by 0. Well, what happens when you get to 0 degrees? I mean, what happens when you get to 90 degrees? The cosine of that angle is 0. Therefore, you have a number that you're dividing by 0. And in math, you get an error. And in the real world, the system just goes wonky, and, spacecraft burn and crash and things like that. So just in math, you can never divide by 0. In engineering, you can't have a math problem that's dividing by 0. And that is what gimbal lock is. The STEM 32, no. Really, I think the Pico does everything the STEM does, and there's just much more infrastructure around it. I got all the ESP32 stuff, but it was kind of a mess, and so I probably will not want to do that. What is the chip card with the accelerometer gyro on it? It's the MPU 6050, and it's in the Sunfounder kit. Greg, the math lessons would be great. It is more interesting to learn when it is something that I will have an interesting project like to apply it to. Learning in school was like busy work. Learning in school was like a real pain. It was complete misery, but we're going to make it fun. Okay, we're going to make it fun if you guys will stick with it. Can we beat gimbal lock by ignoring 0? Yeah, I mean, when you use quaternions, you're not dividing by 0. And so with quaternions, you don't get gimbal lock. And so that's one of the great things about quaternions. Everything works perfectly at every angle. And so that's why you want to do quaternions. Lars, thanks. Peter, love it. Okay, you guys ask a few questions. Give me a few questions here in the last couple of minutes before we sign off. Let's take a look here. We didn't spend much time looking at the Nile, but you can see it's light outside. Beautiful morning out on the Nile River. There's a lot of stuff in B&O 055 classes, but the problem is that's a little bit of a complicated chip. And so this time we're going to do it with very simple, just the MPU whatever it was, 6050 or whatever we said it was. All right. And so I'll just be teaching this from the perspective of trigonometry. Okay, let's give you one more chance to ask a few questions. I had no idea that it was the Nile and background. Wait, cool. Yeah, not just the Nile. This is the source of the Nile. I'm sitting at the headwaters of the Nile River. Any thoughts on India's moon and sun mission? Think it's great. I think more countries need to be doing more technology. I think more people need to be going into engineering, and something like a moonshot just stimulates the imagination of the young people to get interested in math and technology. And whether they actually ever end up working on the space program, it spurs the imagination on those two important topics. And what do we know? The world needs more people doing engineering. What would this do in zero gravity? Actually, BBF, I'm going to talk about that when we go through this lesson, because zero gravity doesn't just involve space. If I have the unit and I drop it, when it's falling, what does it experience? 0g. When you are orbiting the Earth, you are at 0 g's, not because you're far away from the gravity field, but you are in free fall towards the Earth. You're constantly free falling towards the Earth, but you're just going over the curve of the Earth, but you're constantly free falling towards the Earth, but you're just going around the edge. I know that kind of sounds confusing, but in orbit, you are in 0 g's, not because you're outside of gravity, but because the gravity is pulling you towards the Earth as the centrifugal force is pushing you out. And so those two forces, the centrifugal force of spinning and the gravitational force, balance, and therefore you're at 0g. Can we obtain the battery charger? The only way I know to get the battery charger is with the Sunfounder kit, because they actually designed this little board just for this kit, and I don't know if you can order it separately. Okay, give you a couple more chances for some questions. This is Khalid from Canada. Welcome, Khalid. Great to have you here. Perfectly level all the time, I guess. Let's see. Didn't quite understand that. Do you know the story of David Livingstone? He was this explorer looking for the source of the Nile. Yes, actually, I know that. And here nearby where I live, there's several monuments to him. What about Uno R4? Yes, we're putting together a kit with Sunfounder for the Uno R4, and I do imagine that to soon be an upcoming set of lessons. And so, yeah, I do hope to do that. What are you doing with the rest of your day? Well, I'm going to be working on plowing a field field with my walk-behind tractor. I'm going to be tweaking my solar system, and I'm going to be working with the irrigation system. And so the rest of the day is going to be pretty much spent on farming and compound related projects. All right, let's see. Let me get one more question, and then we will kind of call it good. You guys give me feedback. Do you want to do more of these live streams? I have a lot of fun with them, but if they're just, you know, kind of like, another live stream, let me know if you want to do more of this. Okay, RC Racing Fun, love your videos. Any idea of the type of robot Arduino project that I can get my 9-year-old daughter interested in robotics? RC Racing, start with Arduino and programming and that class, because robotics, they just don't work very well. The components are hard to use and they don't work very well. Start with the Arduino, the programming and the circuits, and then robotics will naturally fall after that. Okay, we've got some people. When do you get to meet the Sunfounder team? I just interact with them over email, and you know, basically they're great guys and I enjoy working with them, and I like it because I get good stuff. You know, it's just like we don't keep getting the same old stuff, that we're going to have some really good stuff in this new kit. So I enjoy working with them. Lessons starting on R4. I'm waiting for the prototype kit to get here. I'll probably do a review of the kit, and then shortly after that we will start the lessons, because you know, I usually do 2 lessons a week, and so I will incorporate back into Thursdays the R4 lessons. Okay, any particular project for the Arduino, just go back to my Arduino lessons and just start with lesson number 1 and go through them, and you'll do project after project after project, and your child will find success on lesson 1 that will stimulate them, and then the projects get more and more advanced, little bites, step by step. By the time you get to the end of the class, you will be really, really an expert. Okay, guys, I think I need to let you go. I've gone 5 minutes over. I don't really like to let these lessons go more than an hour, and we went a little bit long today, but man, I'll talk to you about coffee another day. But yeah, coffee is really special to me if you didn't know that. So you guys, really appreciate you guys who are supporting this channel and giving your comments and tuning in and stuff. It means a lot to me that we've got a great user community developing out there. I appreciate that. And share these lessons with other people, because the world needs more people doing engineering and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later. Paul McWhorter signing off.